Mark chapter 5. We're looking at the miracles of Christ. This particular miracle is a very familiar one to most. We'll read the first 20 verses. And they came over to the other side of the sea into the country of the Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs. No man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice, and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God, that thou torment me not. For he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was there nigh unto the mountain a great herd of swine feeding. And all the devils besought him, saying, Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave. And the unclean spirits went out, and entered into the swine. And the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000, and were choked in the sea. And they that fed the swine fled, and told it in the city and in the country. And they went out to see what it was that was done. And they come to Jesus, and see him that was possessed with the devil, and had the legion sitting, and clothed, and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And they saw it, they that saw it told them how it befell him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. And they began to pray him to depart out of their coasts. And when he was come into the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. Howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but saith unto him, Go home to thy friends. Tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee. And he departed, and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. Leading up to this miracle, recorded by Matthew, Mark, and Luke, as we've already seen, Jesus had been teaching a great multitude on the seashore of Capernaum. And as the crowds pressed upon him, he entered into a nearby ship, create some distance between him and the people, and then he taught the people, taught them the parables. Upon finishing his teaching, he and the apostles begin a journey across the Sea of Galilee from west to east. And during that journey, they find themselves in the midst of a life-threatening storm. We've looked at that miracle the last 2 weeks. Jesus calmed the storm by simply saying, Peace, be still. The apostles, they are struck with reverential awe concerning his authority, his power over the elements. Christ has revealed to them that He is Master, that He is Lord over the physical world. But Jesus was not finished teaching and revealing to His disciples, for they were about to witness another demonstration of His authority and power. Jesus teaches us. Jesus reveals to us. And as wonderful as that is, even more wonderful is that there's more. There's more. And Jesus is about to show these apostles, there's more. There's more to me than you've seen. Jesus and His disciples arrive in the country of the Gadarenes. And here Christ would demonstrate His authority, His power over the spirit world. These disciples witness that Christ has authority and power over the evil of sin and over the hosts of hell. They would witness a demonstration of the power of Christ to change and to cleanse and to deliver those who are held by the chains of sin and Satan. They would witness Jesus relieving a demonic from his suffering by delivering him from the cause of his suffering and restoring his life. So let's look at this man of Gadara. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all open their accounts with Jesus and the apostles arriving on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, the eastern shore. Mark and Luke refer to it as the country of the Gadarenes. It's referring to the region of Gadara, one of the cities of Decapolis, a 10-city region. They have arrived in this region of Decapolis. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record that upon their arrival, they are met by a man possessed of demons. Now Matthew, in his account, Matthew 8:28, says there were two men, while Mark and Luke only mention one. Mark and Luke are not denying that there were two, but Mark and Luke are both focused upon one of these two. I believe there were two, but Mark and Luke are focused upon one. Why, we don't know for sure, but perhaps because he was more fierce than the other. But know this, society did not have what these men needed. But the one who did has arrived. And he has arrived as the rescuer from the enslavement, from the misery, from the despair and the agony of the forces of hell. Jesus has arrived as the restorer of broken and wasted lives. And He's there for these two men. Again, we'll focus in on the one that Mark and Luke focus upon. This man was under the control of Satan. He was under the control of the powers of hell. And don't think that that doesn't exist today. Jesus and the apostles arrived. Mark declares, Mark 5 verse 2, that immediately there met him a man out of the tombs, a man with an unclean spirit. Verse 9 of Mark's account, the unclean spirit is defined as legion. The word legion simply means many. But it was a word that was commonly used to refer to a contingent of approximately 6,000 Roman soldiers. And this man that Mark and Luke are focused upon was possessed. He was controlled by a legion of demons. Demons are spiritually and morally unclean. And this man has a legion of them. Demons are filled with evil. This man had a legion of them. Demons are filled with hate and malice toward God, toward the things of God, toward the people of God. And this man had a legion of demons. Demons, of course, are in rebellion against God. This man had a legion of them. Demons are the enemies of God. And this man had a legion of demons. This man was haunted by these demons. This man was under the spell of a legion of demons. And Luke tells us in Luke 8:27 that he had devils a long time. Everything that we read of this man had been going on for a long time. This man is a profoundly pitiful picture of demons controlling a life. Again, immediately, there met him a man out of the tombs, a man with an unclean spirit. And you picture this man. As we read on, we see more things that describe him. So we can picture this man as he approaches Christ. Perhaps broken chains are hanging from his wrists. You can hear the clanging of the chains around his ankles as he dragged them along. His naked body is covered with scars, perhaps bleeding sores from his self-inflicted wounds. I imagine his hair is matted together with dirt. Wild terror is in his eyes. He is under the absolute control of sin and Satan. He is a picture of what sin and Satan can do to a life. His life, like the life of countless individuals, has been torn by sin and Satan. His life is marked by devastation. His life is marked by dysfunction. The man lived in the tombs. life is marked by ruin. This man is lost in a maze of sin, drowning in despair, bent on self-destruction. But Jesus has come to where he is to restore, to put back together this man's wasted and broken life. Remember the day when Jesus came to where you were to save your soul. That's what we have here. Secondly, we see this man's dwelling place is described. Mark records there in verse 2, there met him one out of the tombs. Verse 5, he had his dwelling among the tombs. In the tombs. Luke says in his account, neither abode he in any house, but in the tombs. Tombs, of course, at that time were cut out of the side of a mountain, creating a cave. This man lived in the graveyard. Spiritually speaking, he's without Christ. He's dead in trespasses and sins. And his dwelling place was in accord with his spiritual condition. He lived among the dead. This man's disposition and behavior is described. He was unsettled. He was very restless. Mark says, Mark 5 verse 5, always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying. Notice those words, always, night and day. Remember, he's been a long time in this case. This man knew nothing of the peace of the Lord. He knew nothing about the security and the assurance that the Lord brings to one's life. He knew nothing of spiritual refreshment. His life is filled with chaos, weariness, and distress. We see also his life was filled with sorrow. Mark says again, always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying. The word crying refers here to a loud scream, a shriek. In all probability, the townspeople had heard his blood-curdling screams in the night and in the day, echoing through the mountains. Here is a man tormented day and night by the forces of hell. And all the despair, the misery, the anguish, and the hopelessness that filled this man's soul. He was self-destructive. Mark says, always night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs. Again, keep in mind this is going on for a long time. Crying, and then notice, cutting himself with stones. Cutting himself gashing and hacking himself with stones. Oh, the destructive power of the demonic world. Oh, the destructive power that possessed this man. This destructive power is also seen in the result of the demons entering into the swine. Verse 12 and verse 13. We see the herd ran violently as a result of the demons. They're out of their mind. Down a steep hill into the sea. 2,000 of them, approximately. And they were choked. They were drowned in the sea. Oh, the self-destructive power of the forces of hell. This man was filled with anger. Matthew says in Matthew 8:28 that he was exceeding, that means more than, fierce. He was exceeding fierce. He was more than fierce. Fierce conveying the idea of savage, vicious, aggressive, so that no man might pass by that way. They knew where he lived, and no man ventured there. His actions were more animal-like than human. We see a lot of that today, by the way. And he would attack anyone who ventured to take the road by the tombs. Most knew to stay away. But I'm sure occasionally there were those who walked those roads. And there he was. Again, the anger raged in this man's soul. The anger that raged in his soul is also seen in the result of the demons entering the swine. The herd ran violently down a steep place, crazed, out of their mind. They ran in a vicious, ferocious, barbaric, and ungovernable way. They're out of control. I believe we can gather that this man was a moral degenerate as well. The demons are described by Mark as unclean. That is, they're impure. They're defiling. And he has a legion of unclean demons. Oh, the moral filth of this man's life. Luke says in Luke 8:26 that he wear no clothes. Wear no clothes. This is part of Satan's program. Public nudity and indecency. He was uncontrollable. This man is greatly disturbed. He's distressed. He's self-destructive. He's enraged. He's wild. He's degenerate. And to protect him from himself and to protect others from him, they would put chains on his hands and shackles on his feet. This was man's solution. This was man's remedy. But Mark records, no man could bind him. No man could bring him under control. And then notice that next word. No man could bind him. No. That's used for emphasis, not with chains. He goes on to say that they had tried to do so many times. But notice, the chains had been plucked asunder. Just break them apart. By him, and the fetters broken in pieces. And then notice, neither could any man tame him. Society could not control him. The one who could has arrived. Society could not help him. Every time they put chains on him, that would just increase his madness. They tried to fix him, but they couldn't. They tried to control him, but they could not. You look at this man. Take a good look at him. He's under the control of the forces of hell. And you cannot fix what is caused by the supernatural with the natural. It cannot be done. Society has been trying to do it since the fall. It cannot be done. Again, no man could. You could not sit down and reason with this man. You could not tame him. But there came a day. Jesus has arrived. And he has arrived for this man. Again, thank God for the day when Jesus arrived where we were to deliver us. So we get a picture of this man. I wish we could paint a better picture, but you get the idea. Then we see the power of Christ over evil. Christ arrives in Gadara. And though society did not have what this man so desperately needed, there was one who did. And he comes to the place where this man was. Again, and when he, Jesus, was come out of the ship, immediately there met him a man out of the tombs, a man with an unclean spirit. Again, based upon the description we have of this man, look at him as he approaches Christ. Broken chains hanging from his wrist. The clanging of the chains could be heard as he dragged them along. His body is scarred with self-inflicted wounds. Terror is in his eyes. He is externally and internally unclean. And society does not have what this man needs. All society could do was deal with his symptoms. That's all they could do. And in that, they fail miserably. So look at this man and see what sin and Satan can do to people. This demoniac very aptly portrays the condition of many. This world is filled with people whose lives have been torn to shreds by sin and Satan. Most of us probably have some of these in our families. Everywhere, there are people whose lives have been devastated and ruined. And they're lost in the maze of sin. Everywhere, there are people's lives without purpose. This man has no purpose in life. Their lives are aimless. Just like this demoniac, there are people who are drowning in despair. And their lives are bent on self-destruction. And what these people need, social services or man cannot give. What these people need is the one who came to the region of Gadara that day. And thank God, he still comes to the place of the sinner. Still does. You never know where he might meet you. Christ would exercise his power over the forces of sin and Satan. When the demoniac, Mark 5 verse 7, rushed toward Christ, with the demons screaming through him, "What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High?" It's the demons speaking through him. Look at the apostles. What do you think they saw? Well, they saw the same thing you and I would have seen. Some wild-eyed maniac. But Jesus saw something more than a maniac. He saw a soul under the control of Satan. He saw a soul perishing in sin. He saw one who desperately needed to be rescued. Personal examination is necessary. What do we see when we see one under the control of sin and Satan? What do we see? Just some maniac? Or do we see a soul dying in sin? What do we see? Notice what Mark declares in verse 13. And forthwith, that is immediately without delay, Jesus gave them leave. This one named Jesus dismisses a legion of demons. Again in verse 3, no man could. And in verse 4, neither could any man. But this one named Jesus, he has authority He has power over the hosts of hell. And He sends them into the herd of swine, who as a result run down the steep slope half crazed into the sea and drown. Those responsible for these swine, they fled in fear. And they tell the townspeople what they had witnessed. And the townspeople, upon hearing such, came to Jesus. And they see something truly amazing. Mark says in verse 15, they saw him that was. Notice was, past tense. Possessed with the devil, and had, past tense, a legion. They saw the one whose life had been long controlled by the forces of hell. They see the one who lived in the tombs. They see the one who dwelt among the dead, whose blood-curdling screams they had heard throughout the day and night. The one whose life had been bent on destruction. This one whose life had been torn to shreds and so devastated and enslaved by sin and Satan. They see him, and he's sitting, and there he is. He probably looked 2 or 3 times. Can it be him? Certainly not. He's no longer in despair, no longer in anguish, no longer in the tombs, no longer out of control, but he's sitting. He's calm. He's relaxed. He's untroubled. There's a tranquility about him. He's no longer someone to be afraid of. The one who had for a long time been under the control of a legion of demons. There he is, sitting and clothed. There's a marked difference in his life. He that was spiritually and morally vile, he has clothes on. He has clothes on. The shame, the disgrace, the filth, they're all gone. Oh, what Jesus can do. Oh, what Jesus can do. Don't give up on anyone. Oh, what he can do. This man, formerly possessed with a legion of demons, he's been cleansed. He's been changed. A life that had been so devastated by sin and Satan has been restored. A life lost in the maze of sin has been recovered. And it was Jesus. And it always is. A life that has been desecrated by sin has been made whole. There he sits. He's been set free. The chains are gone. And notice that this man who was absolutely out of his mind is now in his right mind. He's in his right mind. The anguish, the torment, the distress, the misery, the agony, the mania, all gone. All gone. Oh, what Jesus can do. As this man is sitting and clothed and in his right mind, he no doubt felt a liberty that he'd never felt before. All because of Jesus. He has a cleanliness and a joy and a peace and an assurance that he never had before. He now has a love that he never had before. He has a thankfulness that he never had before. And a praise that he never had before. See him there. Look at this man. Look at him when he rushed toward Christ. Now look at him. He has a different outlook. Has a different attitude. You know, a lot of people try to tell you that Jesus saved their soul, but their attitude's still the same. I don't think so. His attitude is different. His thoughts are different. His desires are different. Mark declares in verse 18 that he has a desire to be with Jesus. He prayed him that he might be with him. With him. Here's a man who lived in the tombs. And now his desire in life is to be with him. Oh, what Jesus can do. Everything is different. His desire for the tombs is gone. He doesn't want to go back there. He wants to live with him. Verse 19 of Mark's account, Jesus instructed him, "Go home to thy friends." That is where he used to live before he took up his dwelling in the tombs. It'd been some time since he'd been back home, having lived in the tombs. He said, "I want you to go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and has had compassion on thee." Could you imagine? As this man headed home, gets close to his house, his relatives, his friends, looking out the window, seeing him come. Oh no. We can't have him back in our life. They look a little closer. Doesn't look like the same person. He's so different. And he arrives in the house, and he begins to tell them what Jesus had done. And they could see with their own eyes. There's a difference. He's different. Now imagine had he come home, chains still on him, still naked, still wild-eyed maniac, and he begins to tell them what Jesus had done. Nobody's going to believe that. Nobody's going to believe that. But they could see something has happened to this man. So he goes home and he tells of the Lord's grace. He tells of the Lord's mercy. He had nothing to brag about. You and I don't either. We didn't change our lives. He did. Ours is a message of His grace, His mercy, His love. But this former demonic had a passion for the Lord. But I believe he also had a burden for others. And I believe he zealously told what Christ had done for him. Mark 5 verse 20 says, he departed and began to publish, spread abroad in Decapolis, how great things Jesus had done for him. Oh, what great things you and I that are saved that Jesus has done. And all men did marvel. They couldn't believe their eyes. Oh, what Jesus can do. This miracle of Christ is a vivid illustration of the destruction, the misery, the despair that sin and Satan can bring upon a life. Someone says, well, I'm not that bad. That gives you a lot of hope. Jesus did this for this man. And you may not think you're that bad. But oh, what Jesus can do. Oh, what Jesus can do. It's a vivid illustration of the change, the peace, the joy that Christ can bring into otherwise hopeless lives. Again, oh, what Jesus can do. Trust Him. Trust Him today. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us